All right, we're going to go ahead and call the regular City Commission meeting order. Please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. All right, good evening. We've done a few chair shifts, I think, from our work session here at 6 o'clock into our City Commission meeting. So good evening to those of you who are joining us for our regular meeting. Al, roll call.
Benson.
Here.
Brunick.
Here.
Johnson.
Present.
Maibaum.
Present.
Minor.
Here.
Schramm.
Here.
Weber.
Here.
Villanueva.
Present.
Mayor Moser.
Here.
City Manager Leon.
Here.
City Attorney Denherter.
Here.
All right, moving on into routine business. I would ask for a motion to approve the minutes of the regular meeting of April 11th, 2022, and the special meeting of April 15th, 2022.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Anybody from the public? All right, all those in favor of approving the minutes of the regular meeting and special meeting, say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Anybody abstaining? All right, motion carries. City Manager report. City Manager Leon.
Thank you, Honorable Mayor, members of the Commission, and public. Our mission here at the city is to provide exemplary experiences, services, and spaces that create opportunities for everyone to learn, engage, and thrive. Congratulations to Commissioner Minor, Commissioner Weber, and Commissioner Schramm on your recently being reelected to another term on the City Commission. And congratulations to Al and Lisa and the Finance Office for a well-run election. We will be doing the oath of office at our next meeting. We'll have Ross swear you in and do your oath of office for your next 3 years as city commissioners. We'll also have our reorganization at the next meeting where you will all elect your mayor for the coming year. So be thinking about that. And then soon thereafter, we'll be talking about committee assignments. So that's our kind of our spring reorganization. And we held the household hazardous waste event this past Saturday. And the cars that didn't blow away were 115. So there was 115 cars, trucks, or loads, whatever you want to say, that came into the transfer station for the household hazardous waste event. That's a little bit low than what we've had in the past, but we're wondering if our last event we had a larger number than normal just because people were home being able to clean, and maybe now that we all can go out and be out and do things, perhaps not as many came through. But still, that was a good day and good to get those materials taken care of the way that they need to be taken care of. Unless you have questions for me, that's all I wanted to bring forward to you all. So I'll stand for questions and I'll let you get to your business. Thank you.
Any questions for the city manager? All right, speaking of Lisa, I do have to say it's extremely exciting to see you back in the commission chambers tonight. So welcome back. How's motherhood? Good, good. What did we have? Baby boy. What did you name him? Charles Scott. Awesome. All right. We'll start teaching him, commission meetings, financing. You can never start too young on that, right? Okay. Awesome. All right. Well, congratulations. Good to see you back tonight. All right, we'll be moving on here to public appearances. We do have one scheduled public appearance tonight, so we will start with that, and I'll turn it over to City Manager Leon to do the introduction.
Thank you, Honorable Mayor, members of the Commission. As you know, we've recently updated our housing study, and our timing, or Thrive's timing with that update of our housing study was wonderful because of the legislation that has been brought forward this year in the South Dakota legislature. It positions us well to be ready to access funds. One of the sort of prerequisites is that you do have updated housing information. Everyone's aware of the housing needs that we have, but to know exactly what types of housing is necessary and, what our trend has been, we engaged with Thrive and Community Partners, Inc. to take on that update for us. They, I believe, did our last study in 2017, and a lot has changed from there. So Mr. Scott Knudsen is joining us from the great state of Minnesota, and he's going to give us an update, and you have the PowerPoint presentation in your email, but it's also being broadcast here for everyone tonight. So welcome, Mr. Knudsen, and we'll let you do your presentation, and then I'm sure there'll be some questions.
Good evening, Mayor, members of the City Commission. Thank you very much for the opportunity to be here tonight. And thank you for the opportunity to do this virtually. I would not have been able to actually attend your meeting in person tonight, so allowing the virtual presentation keeps this moving on a faster track. I am Scott Knudsen. Steve Greasert also worked on this project early on. Some of you may have met with Steve. We are a Minnesota-based company, but we have worked with Yankton in the past in 2013 and 2017. This is an update document. We call it the 2022 update, and it is a direct update of the 2017 housing study. And it does track the significant growth in housing and development that has occurred in your community since that time. We have updated in here information on the demographic patterns for the community, including the preliminary information from the 2020 U.S. Census. Not all of it is out yet, but at least some of the key pieces are out, and we incorporated those into this document. We've also been able to put into this document some projections looking forward to the year 2026. Consistent with what we've done for your community in the past, the research methods that we used, among them with demographical and statistical sources that we looked at, like the Census Bureau and others. We collected data locally from the city and from the county, things like building permits, housing starts, sales activity, those types of things. We conducted some local interviews, and we also did an extensive telephone survey of larger multifamily rental properties in the community as part of our rental inventory. It is a big document. It's 140 some pages or whatever long, but there is an executive summary, and I would encourage those of you that are interested to read that executive summary. It'll have greater detail than I'm able to present tonight. It summarizes key findings and highlights and gives you an overview of some of the recommendations. It's still a fairly lengthy executive summary, but it's a lot shorter than the document itself. The study itself, as it's laid out, has a section on demographic data, including, like I said, some of the 2020 census information, some projection data looking forward to the year 2026, a section on income and housing costs taken from the Census Bureau's American Community Survey, existing housing data section, where we look at things like housing starts, home values, age of housing, that type of thing. The rental housing inventory that I talked about, where we've done the telephone survey and we've broken down different subsets of your local rental market and what we found there. There's a section on senior housing with services, things like assisted living, memory care housing, specialized care for seniors. There's a section on statistical information on employment and economic trends, looking at labor force, unemployment rates, commuting patterns. And then finally, our findings and recommendations section, which is fairly lengthy, broken down by subset, looking at rental housing, home ownership, single family housing issues, housing rehabilitation, revitalization type issues, and then other housing issues that we may have discovered in the community. Consistent with our past work in your community, Yankton is the primary focus of this document. However, we do put you into an aggregated area called, for lack of a better term, Greater Yankton, which includes cities, small cities and townships, unorganized territories immediately around you. In total, I believe there's 24 jurisdictions, largely forming like a 15 to 20 mile radius around the community. For certain variables or certain things that we looked at, we may have also put you into a larger region of 4 counties that includes 2 counties in South Dakota and 2 counties in Nebraska. Just a few of the demographic highlights that we looked at. Yankton has been growing, average annual household growth of about 48 households per year between the 2010 census and the 2020 census. However, that is an average over that 10-year time period. there is reason to believe that probably in the last few years of the decade, you were growing at a faster rate than that as you had a significant uptick in housing starts, and most of that housing appears to be occupied. So in the more recent years, it's probably been above that longer term average, but over that 10 years, it was 48 households per year. The city has also been adding a significant amount of population. As tracked by the census, he added about 957 additional residents to the city. However, you do have a fairly large, what we'd call group quarters population. And in the last decade, that group quarters population actually went down, primarily people living in correctional facilities. So actually your more traditional permanent year-round residents increased by closer to 1,200 people over the decade. So a strong decade of population and household growth in the community. Aging trends continue as projected in previous studies. We've talked about these patterns, that there's strong future growth in the 65 and older age ranges. This is consistent with the movement of the baby boom generation through the aging cycle. Some of the projections that we would look at would talk about possible reductions in the number of households and people age 64 and younger. Those are projections and certainly subject to change. But these are consistent patterns with the region and the state, as again, the upper Midwest has a large number of baby boomers, and most communities are seeing an aging population. But I think in Yankton's case, that's also partly due to the fact that you are an attractive place for people to retire in and for seniors to move to, both with medical options, advanced or skilled housing options, and those types of things make you a desirable community for elderly people to move to, including some of those people from that 4-county region and beyond. This study has looked at growth potential for the community, and some of our growth-based projections for housing were based on approximately 59 to 63 households in an average year in Yankton. If this is achieved, it would continue a long-term pattern of growth that we can track back for many decades in your community. It's been fairly consistent. We're looking at an uptick in that growth going forward of, like I say, 59 to 63 households. But it wouldn't surprise me if faster growth actually occurred. I guess, we project these based on what we can see, but certainly as more housing gets created in the community, it's certainly possible you'll grow at an even faster rate over the next 5 years. There is some income information in here. I mean, it's not really the strongest component of this document, in part because it's hard to collect accurate income information. The median household income was about $50,600 in 2019. This is taken from the American Community Survey. But that said, you have to realize that there is some disparity that goes on between the income levels. And for homeowners, the median household income was above $67,000, where for renters in your community, it was closer to $34,000. So if people own their housing, they tend to have higher incomes. And again, it goes kind of hand in hand. Higher income people can afford to buy their housing, while many of the renters in your community, over half of them in 2019, had an annual income below $35,000. And housing costs become a bit more of an issue for those people. And one of the things that you need to look at in terms of housing affordability. We took a look at single family information or existing housing highlights here. From 2017 to 2021, Yankton was producing or permitting approximately 44 single family units per year. Now that was primarily in the form of single family detached houses, traditional single family houses. There was also some attached housing that occurred in there in the form of twin homes, townhouses, that type of thing for owner occupancy. There was also some additional townhouse style rental housing, but here we were talking about single family. Home values in the community continue to rise. We took a look at a couple of different data sources based on county information. The midpoint sale price last year in 2021 was above $178,000. According to the Realtors, Board of Realtors information, was closer to $196,000. There is a slight difference here. The Board of Realtors tends to look at some houses that are outside the city limits, but in the immediate Yankton area, which could drive up prices. And the Realtors information would not include some of the lower value sales that might be for sale by owner, that type of thing. But somewhere in the high 170s to close to 200,000 was the midpoint sale price last year. It wouldn't surprise me if that were higher if we were able to get statistics for 2022. Some additional existing housing highlights, multifamily construction here. From 2017 to 2021, the city permitted an average of 56 units per year. There were some large multifamily projects that advanced. Most of this production serves the conventional market rate segment, traditional conventional rental housing in Yankton. However, there was the Yankton Heights 2 project, which was also advanced, which created some moderate income, income restricted tax credit housing. Despite the expansion of units that has occurred in recent years in the rental stock, vacancy rates continue to remain very low, at least within certain segments. We estimated the vacancy rate of 1% or less in the traditional conventional market rate housing stock. It is important to note, however, that there were still some units under construction, and those vacancy patterns may change somewhat when some of these new units come online in 2022. But still, there seemed to be strong demand for any kind of conventional housing that existed out there. Yankton Heights, looking at the more affordable side of things, Yankton Heights 1, which was in 2014, and Yankton Heights 2, which has been more recent, did create between the two projects 70 units of income restricted moderate rent housing. So you did have some expansion in that segment of the market, but it's also important to recognize that during that same time, there was some contract compliance that occurred with some of your older affordable projects, some of your subsidized projects. As a result, what we found in 2022 was that you actually have a smaller supply of income restricted housing in the tax credit subsidized sectors than you did when we first worked in your community back in 2013. Despite the fact that that supply has decreased, we did find some vacancies in that segment. That may have been due to a number of factors. The strong economy may have driven up people's incomes so that people didn't qualify. There's also maybe some issues surrounding some of the monies that were provided in terms of COVID relief that helped people pay rent. So some people that may have otherwise wound up in subsidized housing were able to stay in their other apartments, market rate apartments. Specialized senior housing, we took a look at it. You continue to have multiple providers within this section or this segment of the housing market. However, there really has not been any new construction, newly developed units in many years. Now, there was the replacement of the nursing home some years ago, but no real new construction with, say, the assisted living or memory care. Despite that fact, we did find some shift in use of units. We found fewer units offering what I'd call light services, more independent senior housing, slightly fewer units in the assisted living segment, and more units dedicated to memory care. Now, you've got some very experienced providers and some very good providers in the community, and they're able to adjust as time goes on with expanding needs, in this case, memory care, and diverting some of their beds and rooms to that use. Just a few employment highlights taken from real standardized sources. Unemployment rates remain low in your area, extremely low in your area. We did see some impact from COVID in 2020, but by 2021, most of that had been recovered. A temporary blip in unemployment rate, some drop in employment. Like I say, most of that is recovered. Despite the fact that you are such a strong community for job growth, if you look at that broader 4-county region, there really has not been much change in the supply of resident labor force. The number of people that are out there looking for jobs. More and more people have concentrated in the Yankton area, but in the region, you haven't necessarily seen an expansion of the labor force. With the jobs that are created in Yankton and with a lot of the people living in the immediate Yankton area, approximately 84% of the people that work in Yankton were able to commute less than 30 minutes for employment. So people are able to work fairly locally, and many of them have a shorter commute time than that, both living and working in the city. Some of the unit recommendations and the highlights of the recommendation section. We have talked in this document about potential demand for 275 to 325 rental units over our 5-year projection period extending to 2026. Well, we'd ideally like to see these units spread across a broad segment of rental housing types. We have to recognize that 60% or more is likely to occur within the conventional market rate segment, simply because of the economics of building new housing. To build something that has a lower rent, a below market rent, a subsidized rent, often takes a significant subsidy. Instead, what will probably happen is the conventional market rate segment that can proceed with private developers. But again, ideally, you'd like to see some lower priced units. And we talk about that, trying to encourage moderate rent conventional housing, again, something that may not have an income restriction on it, but still would command a lower rent than some of the units that may, say, be over $1,000 for a 2-bedroom going forward. You know, ideally, you'd like to see some units in that $800, $900 range to help serve some more of the moderate income renters, some people that are closer to the median household income for renter households. We would encourage some additional income restricted development despite some of the vacancies that were present. In part, you are a growing community and there's going to be continued demand for some of this income restricted workforce type tax credit housing. And also, in our opinion, you're going to continue to see probably some loss of older subsidized units. So simply, some of this income restricted housing is needed just for things like unit replacement. Senior housing with services, our projections show as much as a 20% growth in some of the primary target market of older senior citizens age 75 and above through the year 2026. Again, there's been limited past expansion, which also indicates that probably some additional development could be needed. However, we do give a big caveat in this because it's important to recognize that the pandemic had its greatest impact on congregate senior housing, seniors living in multifamily buildings. And there was some hesitancy for some time for people to move. And I think until some of that settles down, it's a little hard to assess the exact state of your senior housing with services inventory right now. But that should become more clear as we move farther away from the pandemic. Homeownership recommendations. This study has used a projection that annual demand for homeownership units will be somewhere between 40 and 52 units per year. That's fairly consistent with what you've been doing in recent years, as you've been averaging about 44 single-family housing starts per year over the last 5 years. However, we also have to take into account that there are escalating construction costs, and more recently, we're seeing escalation in the mortgage interest rates, which may, at least in the near term, somewhat suppress that. But I still think longer term, you're going to see an uptick in some of the single family housing starts in the community. You've done fairly well in recent years, and there's no reason to believe that that won't continue as things settle down here. Approximately 65% of the demand, in our opinion, will be in the moderate to higher price ranges. These typically don't require any kind of public involvement. This is what the private sector does fairly well. Up to 35% of the demand we've placed in the more affordable segment. This may take some type of public involvement, especially recently, to try and lower costs, to try and put in some programs that help people buy their first home, that type of thing. I mean, I think we all recognize how increasingly difficult it is to construct affordable new construction for home ownership. I mean, right now, the state of South Dakota with their first-time homebuyer assistance programs has a price limit of up to $300,000. It wasn't all that many years ago that we'd have talked about trying to produce affordable units under $200,000. So price escalation, some of the things again caused by the pandemic, supply chain shortages and things continue to drive up costs, making affordable new construction for ownership extremely difficult, and again, probably warrants some degree of public involvement, including what the state is now looking at doing. You've obviously achieved success within a more affordable new construction with projects like Westwood Estates and the additional phases that has spawned. We're also expecting that you'll see some uptick again in attached single family units like twin homes and townhomes. It matches your demographic fairly well, and I guess and also I should say as costs escalate, it's probably a way to shave some cost out of some new home building. We would encourage you to continue to emphasize rehabilitation and preservation of the existing housing stock based on the information we have. The midpoint construction year for both owner and renter housing would date to the 1970s. So over half of your housing units in your community are more than, say, 45 or 50 years old, and preservation of that housing is very important. Maintenance and improvement of that single family stock can help to maintain affordable home ownership. The older existing housing is by far your most affordable housing in most cases. And I would also point out that it looks to us like the home ownership rate in Yankton has probably dipped a little bit in recent years and has possibly moved below 60%. We don't know that for certain right now, but certainly keeping that single family housing stock desirable for home ownership can help preserve some of that and help maintain a higher rate of home ownership in the community, which is generally good for community stability. And with that, I didn't exactly get a start time, but I think I ran over my time a little bit, but I'm hoping we can now have some discussion and questions.
Does the commission have any questions? I have one, Scott, and I'm not sure if you can answer it or not. One of the areas we've talked about in our community are those houses that our own technically, but sit empty. Does this study take into account, or is there a way to kind of calculate what communities look like and how many of those types of properties tend to exist in communities of like size if we don't have it for Yankton specifically?
We don't have that information in here necessarily. One of the pieces that we are looking for from the more detailed census tables that are to come out is some information on what the census found for housing vacancy. Those detailed tables have not yet been released. I've talked to Nancy about that, and we're planning to provide some supplemental information when the census does come out. But I would say that you might have better information locally at this point from tax records and that type of thing than we have from any of the sources we can tap into.
Scott, this is Commissioner Nathan Johnson. Thanks for being with us tonight. So, anecdotally, we hear that with people being able to work from home, that you're seeing people leave large cities to more rural areas. Are you seeing any sort of impactful trends in that area that's beneficial or detrimental to this part of the country?
Again, I don't know that I can say anything more than my own anecdotal stories or my own opinion, because I don't know that that's necessarily out there. The timing of the census, if anything, the 2020 census was ill-timed with the pandemic, because in some ways, it was right at the early stages, but it might have actually had in some communities, like we're working in Vermillion as well, it might have driven out some college students when the census was taken. But I don't know that we have any statistical data to support that, other than what, like you're saying, that there are reports that people have moved in because they can work from anywhere. So.
Other questions from the commission? Scott, you might get off the hook. I don't see any other mics coming on. I do thank you for your work done on this for our community, and I'm sure good things moving forward as we take this information and see how we can apply it. So I appreciate your help on that.
All right, and thank you very much, and thanks to Dave Mingo and Nancy for their assistance along the way.
Awesome. So I would maybe put Nancy on the spot a little bit. She wasn't planning on talking tonight. Man, she's shaking her shoulders. Sure, she loves to talk. Okay. So one, to thank Nancy and Thrive for their work on this project, because obviously we've been needing it, as you can tell from the update, and a lot has changed since then. I do know the study will be published on your website?
It's actually posted in 2 places on our website right now, so you can go out there and get that information.
YanktonSD.com?
Correct, yanktonsd.com, and under Living in Yankton, there is a housing study link there, or if you're on the Economic Development tab, under Studies and Surveys, the link is also there.
Okay, so, It's on the city site too, so several ways for folks to access this. And I don't know if this next question goes to Scott or if it goes to you, but always as we get these presentations, my next thought is, what's next? So I don't know if you, again, on behalf of Yankton Thrive, what do you see or envision the local group doing? Not that we're asking you to solve the housing issue by any means, but I do know, obviously, as a few of us up here sit on the Yankton Thrive board, we have talked about, and many times in our community, I always say it's kind of the chicken and the egg, right? We need more workers, but we're going to have a place for them live. And if we don't have places for them to live, how are we going to get more workers? But so kind of maybe if there's anything you can share with the commission on what you see Yankton Thrive maybe taking this study for. And Scott, I don't know if there's anything else on your end. You did talk about some supplemental information that you're going to be providing Nancy and Yankton Thrive, but between the two of you, kind of what do you see as what's next now that we've had this?
Yeah, I will take that question. What we've been doing is gathering information from our local developers and the projects that they're looking to either initiate or continue in the coming years. it's also important for us to continue to be a little bit patient with South Dakota Housing as they're coming out with their rules that will be associated with the $200 million that will be accessible and available to communities in either loans or grants. So I encourage people, as well as encourage Thrive, to continue to put our plans together so we are ready to go when those rules are established. There will likely be no more than 1/3 of the eligible infrastructure project costs that will be accessible through this grant program of South Dakota Housing. So there's still significant investment that will be needed by our community, our developers, to try and create affordable housing, to utilize the $200 million or additional housing options. So as you heard in the presentation, market rate housing, market rate rentals are something that are incredibly needed in our community, and that's at a rate of $900 or more a month. And that, for many people, they say that is not affordable to me. I cannot pay the $900 a month. But in looking at income levels, and with no more than 30% of your income going to housing, there are people who, based upon the numbers, specifically just the numbers, they should be able to afford rents in that range. So it's continuing to look at those partnerships and how we can buy down some of those infrastructure costs and create good partnerships with the city, the county, and others in our community to get that development to happen. And I do want to thank Scott as well. They were great to work with, and we are excited to get the next round of data. And really, that's dependent upon the census and when they drop that data. And then we'll be able to do an update to those sections where that data was projected when we have the real numbers coming in from the census. So thank you for your patience as we continue to work through that process.
Great. Nancy didn't know she was talking, but any questions from the commission for Nancy, for Scott, before we let her sit down? And Scott, I'm sure, will want to stay on and listen to the rest of the city commission meeting tonight. Scott, any last thoughts from you either? Any last thoughts, Scott, from you on your side? Okay. All right. Well, thanks again, Scott, to you and Nancy, to Yankton Thrive, for all the work you're doing on this. I expect good things to come and continue to come for our community, having this information. With that, we are still in the public appearance part of the city commission. So at this time, I would ask, is there anybody in the public that is here tonight to speak to the commission about something not on the agenda? All right, seeing no movement, we will move on to the consent agenda. Number 1 is consideration of Memorandum 22-64, recommending approval of the application for the Meridian District for a transient merchant license for May 1st through October 31st, 2022. Number 2 is to establish May 9th, 2022 as the date for a public hearing on a request for a special events retail on-sale liquor license for one day, August 27th, 2022 from Utica Hall, Reeb LLC, doing business as Utica Hall, which is at 801 McCarthy Street in Utica, at the Meridian venue located at 101 East 3rd Street. Number 3 is consideration of Memorandum 22-65, recommending approval of the application from 3rd on 3rd, which is a special events dance license for July 3rd, 2022. And number 4 under the consent agenda is consideration of Memorandum 22-66, recommending approval of the application for Mojo's 3rd Street Pizza for a special events dance license for June 4th, 2022. What is your pleasure?
Move the consent agenda.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Anybody in the public? All those in favor of approving the consent agenda, say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. And anybody abstaining? All right, moving on to old business, which we are moving on from. There is no old business. So moving on to new business. Number 1 is consideration of Memorandum 22-72 regarding a local infrastructure improvement program grant application for infrastructure at the northwest of 31st Street and Broadway Avenue. This is through the Governor's Office of Economic Development. The grant can be up to $213,379. And you can see in our commission memorandum packet, there is some urgency here as the deadline is April 29th, 2022. What is your pleasure?
So moved.
Second. We have a motion and a second. Anything from Dave or City Manager Leon to add to this?
No, not unless the commission would like to hear more.
I think seeing no mics come on, anybody in the public want to comment? Al, roll call.
Mybom,
Aye.
Minor,
Aye.
Schramm,
Aye.
Weber,
Aye.
Villanueva,
Aye.
Benson,
Aye.
Brunig,
Aye.
Johnson,
Aye.
Mayor Moser.
Aye, motion carries. Number 2 under new business is consideration of memorandum 22-69 regarding a bid award for West City Limits Road and Summit Street, the 21st Street reconstruction project. This is for a pavement replacement, and low bid is masonry components. The bid came in at a little over $1 million, and the bid estimate is under engineering estimates by a little over $300,000. What is your pleasure?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any commission discussion on this project? Anybody in the public want to comment on this project? Roll call.
Minor,
Aye.
Schramm,
Aye.
Weber,
Aye.
Villanueva,
Aye.
Benson,
Aye.
Brunig,
Aye.
Johnson,
Aye.
Mybom,
Aye.
Mayor Moser.
Aye, motion carries. Number 3 under new business is consideration of memorandum 22-70 regarding a bid award for the 5th Street reconstruction project. This one also, low bidder is masonry components for the amount of $566,650.25. This bid also came in under the engineering estimate, around $124,000. And this project is to remove the existing street section, install new water main, and installing new concrete street, driveway approaches, and sidewalk. What is your pleasure?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any commission discussion on this project? Anybody in the public? Roll call.
Schramm,
Aye.
Weber,
Aye.
Villanueva,
Aye.
Benson,
Aye.
Brunig,
Aye.
Johnson,
Aye.
Mybom,
Aye.
Minor,
Aye.
Mayor Moser.
Aye, motion carries. Number 4 under new business is consideration of memorandum 22-63 regarding a bid award for the Taxiway A rehabilitation project at the Chan Gurney Municipal Airport. This is to, I'm going to say Screed, is that right? Screed Tech? Okay. For $206,017.50. If you caught in your commission memorandum, this also already includes change order 1 in the amount of $20,000 and $20,200 for, was it a bid?
There was a unit labeling discrepancy on the proposal.
There we go. There was a discrepancy in the proposal, which was why it includes already a change order to put the total project cost at $226,217.50. What is your pleasure?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any commission discussion?
So then just that we're clear, there won't be a follow-up agenda item at a future meeting that will include just 20,000. So it's all in one. It's a final dollar amount of 226,217.50.
That is correct.
Excellent. Thanks, Adam.
You're welcome.
All right. Any other commission discussion? Anybody in the public? Roll call.
Weber,
Aye.
Villanueva,
Aye.
Benson,
Aye.
Brunig,
Aye.
Johnson,
Aye.
Mybom,
Aye.
Minor,
Aye.
Schramm,
Aye.
Mayor Moser.
Aye, motion carries. Number 5 is consideration of memorandum 22-62 regarding an agreement for an airport mechanic service at Chan Gurney Municipal Airport. And if approved tonight, this would be giving those duties to John Halstead. Is that how you say his name? John Halstead? What is your pleasure?
So moved.
Second. We have a motion and a second. Any commission discussion?
Has it been about a decade or so since we've had a mechanic out there?
It's less than that, according to Dave.
It's great that we found someone willing to do it, because I know it's been a service we want to offer, but it's hard to find those individuals.
And he's operating out of a hangar out at the airport? Is that how that works?
So yes, the agreement's set up. They'll be operating out of the city maintenance hangar at a $0 rent fee. He'll be offering FAA certified airframe and power plant and inspection authority inspections on aircraft, as well as regular maintenance on aircraft. Very positive thing for the airport. So
Is that on like just set hours or as needed?
it'll be an 8 to 5 Monday through Friday business.
But currently, right now, everyone who's for FAA, for licensing, they're having to fly elsewhere currently, and then this will allow us to have somebody certified here, so we won't have to be leaving.
Yep, that is correct. Our local pilots can utilize the service, as well as others from around the area, or as far away as they want to come to utilize the service. So yes, be a positive thing for the airport.
I'll be abstaining, family relation, but perhaps the individual who'll be taking on this role is in the audience here tonight and would care to talk about what his vision is for the role. I don't know, but I'll be abstaining.
Yes, Mr. Halstead is in the audience. I don't know if he wants to step to the podium or not.
Feel free to come on up, introduce yourself to the commission, and
I'm John Halstead. Do you have any questions? Because I can tell you a lot, and I can talk, but
well, tell us a little bit about your experience or
I'm not
just
a
what you bring to
mechanic.
this position.
I'm not a mechanic. I'm a pilot with Delta Airlines, and I started my career flying in Yankton as a 15-year-old kid, and my mom still lives here, so my son attends Yankton High School, and so there is a connection, always will be, and I've got one full-time mechanic, one part-time, and we're just gonna see how it goes. As an example, as far as like, it sounds odd to have a zero rent hangar, but it's really the way it is these days with cities of this size. Sioux Falls has 2 different maintenance facilities. Winter, South Dakota has one, but to get Winter to work, they actually bought the mechanic a house. And, so it's okay, to have a zero rent hangar. It's not a big deal, but I hope eventually the north side development, I can start to plan a future hangar of my own out there. And just hire more mechanics. And they're very hard to come by, worse than pilots. You hear about the pilot shortage in the news with United and American and Delta, and it's very real, but mechanics are even harder to find because the pay hasn't been, it's starting to catch up, but it's a 2-year commitment in a tech school at minimum, and then there's lots of training on top of that, and so it's very hard to find a good mechanic that you can count on, and I believe I found what I need for the operation, but again, I'm just the person who is managing it, and I'm not a mechanic, so anyway, any questions?
Awesome. Well, thank you
Yeah, you're
for
welcome. Yeah.
putting your name in the hat and
Yep.
for bringing this service to Yankton. We've talked about, I think we've got quite an impressive facility out there that is being used quite regularly, and it's good to have this addition
Nice, yeah.
to
is
it
a
as
nice-
well.
Very nice airport. I definitely would like to expand into, I don't know if any of you remember Falcon Aviation. I used to work there, and they had a 11 airplane charter outfit, and that just is unheard of these days, it seems like. I would like to try to get that going again at some point, but we'll see how this goes, so.
I love it. Well, thank you.
Thanks. All right.
All right. Any other commission discussion? And I apologize, I didn't know you were sitting in the, so thank you, Commissioner Mybom, for pointing that out. Any other commission discussion? Anybody in the public? Roll call.
Villanueva,
Aye.
Benson,
Aye.
Brunig,
Aye.
Johnson.
Aye.
Mybom,
Abstain.
Minor,
Aye.
Schramm, Weber,
Aye.
Mayor Moser.
Aye, motion carries. You have a new job. Yeah, welcome aboard. All right. Number 6, consideration of memorandum 22-68 regarding the West Side Park Improvement Project. This is to LT Companies in T, South Dakota, to the tune of about $1.1 million, which is $290 under the projected estimate. Adam, did you, maybe before I ask for a motion, just kind of want to walk the commission through what this project, or City Manager Leon, what this project entails, so we make sure we understand, because we've talked several times about West Side Park and what our vision is for that. What does this entail?
Sure, this is the pond improvements, so improvements around the perimeter of the pond, also dredging out of the pond and making that a little bit perhaps deeper, but clearing some of that out. Also, the island, stabilization of the island, and some different landscaping on the island. The bridge that was donated by Avera Sacred Health, Sacred Heart Hospital. So that's, the bridge is part of this project, as well as sort of, I don't want to say a patio, but a lookout area in front of the large picnic shelter overseeing West Side Park Pond. So primarily pond improvements in this phase of the project.
Understanding that, what is your pleasure?
So moved. Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any commission discussion?
I guess I would have a question then for maybe Brad Warner or somebody from Stockwell Engineers. Their recommendation, I guess, is what has really driven home the agenda item here tonight. LT Companies is who they're recommending. I would just like to find out a little bit more about LT Companies, if Brad would care to fill us in.
If you could, Brad, tell the commission who you are and your address.
Brad Warner with Stockwell Engineers. That is an excellent question, and unfortunately, I don't have that answer right now. I did speak with David Locke, who's the landscape architect on the project. He filled me in a little bit on some of the items that were going on, and it's exactly what Amy what she stated earlier as far as the improvements. But specifically to your question on LT Companies, we have worked with this individual, Mr. Brown, no relation to our company president, John Brown. We've worked with him in the past on some other projects. I personally have not, so I don't want to speak necessarily directly to that. I can certainly have David circle back with Amy, and she can distribute that answer.
Maybe I can help a little bit.
Thank you.
I have not, in my history, worked with LT Companies either. That's a new name for me. So I don't have a history, but I've got Google. So whenever we have a contractor I'm not familiar with, what did Toby say? Check but verify. And I think that was Nixon that said that, not Reagan. I have to check my history there. But
Trust but verify.
Trust but verify. So I always just kind of, it's not stalking, it's just checking out, seeing what's out there. And if you do a little bit of a search, you'll see some various situations, contract situations that this individual or this company has been involved with, including with other cities, which happens. Anybody that's a contractor, we have contractors in the room tonight, will appreciate that not all projects go smoothly, and sometimes there's questions about them. And I think if you look, one of our neighboring communities had, an experience where, in one case, LT, I think, was a sub who didn't get paid by the general. And when we have contractor, if ever we do have contractor issues, everybody gets put in the pot together, you know. You can think of an experience we had on a wastewater project some years ago, not with the folks that are here in the room tonight, but where there was all kinds of, I don't know, things going on in that project and lots of fingers pointed different ways. We need to take the lowest responsible bidder, and if they're providing a bid and they meet the specifications, if you're going to award a bid, you know, it's state law that we take it by the lowest responsible bidder, and I think that burden of proof would be on us to say they were not responsible. So I did check them out a little bit, had a conversation, because I had some communication with Ross. You know, if you've done your own research and if you're not comfortable, or if, you know, you don't want to proceed, I cannot guarantee you there's not ever going to be any issues with any contractor or any engineer we work with, or any vendor for that matter. But, you know, I think this is a good price, good estimate, and, you know, I think we need to give the opportunity, if we're ready to award the bid, to award it to that lowest bidder. So we did have 2 bids, I believe, on this project.
Yes,
correct?
and in my conversations with Stockwell, David Locke, and John Brown, this is the type of work LT Companies does. Like Amy said, there's some work in Vermillion and other parts of this region, I guess you could say. They do these similar types of projects, have always gotten the work done, and in a professional manner, I guess, with a good quality product. So
Would this be the biggest project that they've taken on themselves?
I can't answer that right offhand, but in my research of what I found in researching this company, they have been involved in larger projects. I can't answer specifically.
And I don't know if they've led this, you know, they would be the lead on this project. So this, same with that, and this may or may not be their first larger project that they're the lead on, but they have been involved in much larger projects.
I know my fellow commissioners and city staff know as well, this is not a project that I've been particularly bullish on at this time in the city's existence. And so just my quick Googling of the company itself did not give me the warm fuzzy that I would have liked for what you could perceive as an underdog, simply because their company has only been around for 2 years. And shortly after they were formed, they got a $200,000 plus PPP loan. They are saying they have 36 employees that were part of that loan, and I have no reason not to trust that that's the case, because that's what was submitted to the SBA. But outside of just a handful of things that I would Google about them, I think Amy was kind in her descriptions about the interactions that this company's had with other entities here in the state, but I don't see any positive interactions. And there certainly are probably positive interactions that they've had with other entities here in the state. I would like to hear more about them, and I would leave it up to my fellow commissioners to decide if they want to hear more about them as well, because I do think it's important that we'll just say Toby came up with it, trust but verify. And I think we should have that warm fuzzy over a new contractor for our city. It'd be great if it's a husband and wife team who had a previous business that they shut down but started a new business, and maybe they're on the right path of being a great small business in the state of South Dakota. I don't get that warm fuzzy just doing Google searching on the interactions that they've had with other entities here in the state the last couple of years. And that's unfortunate, because it could be doing them a disservice, and they're not doing a good job of telling their own story. I don't know. But if any of my constituents were to do the same searching that I did and came to me and said, I can't believe you gave them over $1 million and this is all you had to go off of, other than, you know, Stockwell's word, which I also trust because they've been a valued partner for us for a long time. But it'd be tough for me tonight anyway to say yes to over $1 million to a company that I don't have very many positive things to relay to anybody else about tonight.
Adam, there were 2 bids. The next closest bid is almost $300,000 more than this company bid. You're an engineer. Do we understand why there's such a discrepancy in the bids? Maybe some of that would help.
This is an unusual type of project. I mean, that's rebuilding a pond, so it's not a typical type of project. And also just the current market we're in, there's a lot of unknowns with supply and demand, as well as the October 14th completion date. I mean, that could have been factored into that bid as well.
That was going to be my next question, is all the dates or proof that the work is being done and done in a timely manner? There's a checks and balances there between either Stockwell. Are you the contractor or just did the bid? Are you helping with this project, or you just did the bid? And
They're managing the
contract.
Yeah. And the commission has some options. You know, if you're going to award a bid, that bid needs to be awarded within a certain time frame. I think we say 30 days. You can choose to table, and you can further vet the low bidder. You have to have a good standing if you're not going to award it to the lowest bidder. That would be probably a legal process we need Ross's advice on following. So your option tonight wouldn't be to award it to the other bidder. You could table it, or you can, reject all bids and you can rebid it, or reject all bids and leave it. So you do have options, certainly. And that's not to say that if you do award the bid, we might have an issue. We take that chance whenever we contract with anyone or any outside entity, and that's part of why we have Stockwell, and we expend the funds on engineering and construction management so they can watch step by step going along and help us manage that individual or individuals that we hire. But those are your options, or you can vote it out and see where it lands.
Yeah, and just to reiterate, Amy's right. In our prior conversations, if you remember, we had some difficulty with a contractor last year, and we kind of reevaluated how we do the awarding of bids. And we do have the legal obligation to award it to the lowest responsible bidder. And if we're going to deem a contractor to be irresponsible, we have to be able to articulate why. So essentially, as Amy said, we can't just say, no, we're going to take the next highest bid. We would have to essentially table this and do some additional digging to determine if there is criteria there that would qualify or disqualify this contractor as an irresponsible bidder. But having said that, there is a motion and a second on the floor, so we would need to adjust the motion as it sits in order to table this.
Brad, I know you said you haven't worked personally with this company, but Stockwell has before. We all know how office environments work, water cooler conversations. Would you have heard if there were issues coming into tonight or concerns, or that wouldn't even have come up yet either?
No, if there were, if there were concerns internally, then we would have, discussed that and had that conversation. I have not had any of those conversations. I've not been a part of any of those. Not to say that they did exist, but if they did, I would know about them as one of the owners. So.
Hey, Brad, did Stockwell's work with Mr. Brown's prior company that was dissolved a couple years ago?
I'm not 100% sure. So just for disclosure, this particular area is not the area that I focus on, my, like 8 to 5. This is like this subject matter, and I'm over on this. I do understand this, and I, haven't how do I want to say it? I'm familiar with these types of projects, but I don't deal with them every single day to the depth that other people would in our company. So I cannot give you the exact project. I believe we worked with this company in Vermillion. Indirectly, as Adam said, they were a sub to the general, and we were working with the general. So we've worked with them on that. But I don't personally know if we did anything prior to that. I apologize.
Mayor,
I can certainly do some more research and get some more information back to the commission or to Amy to distribute out to. Sorry, Jerry.
No, thank you. We've worked with Stockwell for a long time, and we have to put some trust into their expertise. I'm not an engineer. I'm going to trust that you guys know what you're doing, and I'm going to call the question.
Is there a second on the call to question?
Second.
We just have to immediately vote it to determine if there's a 2/3 majority to end discussion and then vote the motion.
Al, call the question, please.
Okay, we'll do roll call on the original motion to accept or to award this bid for the west side.
No, you
Sorry,
need to
Al.
do a roll call on a call to question. You have to have 2/3 of the commission
Yeah, just do
vote
the-
in favor of immediate.
Yeah, sorry.
Vote.
Sorry, Al, it's a vote to end discussion, so we'll do a roll call, and if 2/3 majority vote in favor of ending discussion, then we roll into the roll call vote for the actual motion. Sorry about that, Al.
Okay, so we're voting on the call the question. Benson.
Aye.
Brunig.
No.
Johnson.
Aye.
Mybom.
No.
Minor.
Aye.
Schramm.
No.
Weber.
Aye.
Villanueva.
Aye.
Mayor Moser.
Aye.
The call to question passes 6-3.
Roll call. I will remind the commission in front of you is a motion and a second to approve LT Companies of T, South Dakota for the project at Westside Park. Roll call.
Brunig.
No.
Johnson.
Aye.
Mybom.
No.
Minor.
Aye.
Schramm.
No.
Weber.
Aye.
Villanueva.
Aye.
Benson.
Aye.
Mayor Moser.
Aye. I believe, Al, that is motion carries.
Motion carries 6-3.
All right, number 7 under new business is consideration of Memorandum 22-67 regarding a bid award for the Yankton Infrastructure Recovery and Critical Capacity Wastewater Treatment Plant EDA Improvement Project. This is for a construction company that absolutely loves Yankton, and when they got done with the water treatment plant, just couldn't resist coming back and working with Kyle again. So we're looking at John T. Jones Construction out of Fargo, North Dakota. This is a project right at $9,894,000. That is coming in higher than the estimate, but that estimate was done in 2019. What is your pleasure?
So moved. Second.
We do have a motion and a second. Kyle, you want to walk us through, obviously, we've got a lot going on with our wastewater treatment plant. As we already shared, the construction company we're looking at tonight was here and did the water treatment plant. So maybe kind of walk through, commission through what this part of the project is doing.
So I'll start with just a couple of quick introductions. On the far then is Kyle Lynch with HDR Engineering. Then we have Scott and Mike with John T. Jones. Mike was involved a little bit for quite a bit of the project here at the water treatment plant. I have not worked with Scott before, but Scott was actually involved in the wastewater treatment plant almost 20 years ago. So we've got a lot of experience with John T. Jones. Excited to work with him again. That's pretty hard to say with Mike because he's an NDSU grad, so it is painful to say. So,
Hey, we got to let him out of the state just to bring up there.
yeah, so.
Okay.
But again, this is part of our Economic Development Administration grant project. We are kind of really tied to what was in that original engineering report for that application for funding. So that does limit us on what we can and can't do. So it's kind of hard to bring those costs down. We really can't take things out of the project. So it's really either accept the project as bid or give the money away, give the money back. So we are kind of limited on that way. We did see some of this coming with the way costs were coming in, so we did grab some additional SRF funds to help with our share. We originally went in for 3.5 million and went back for an additional million on the SRF. So we do also have 4.5 million in SRF loan combined with this roughly 6.5 in EDA grant funds. So again, this will be kind of that first phase of some ongoing projects at the wastewater treatment facility here in the near future. So with that, I'll open up to any questions, concerns.
All right, I'm not seeing any mics come on, so is there anybody in the public that wants to comment on this? Roll call.
Johnson.
Aye.
Mybom.
Aye.
Minor.
Aye.
Schramm.
Aye.
Weber.
Aye.
Villanueva.
Aye.
Benson.
Aye.
Brunig.
Aye.
Mayor Mosher.
Aye, motion carries, and our thanks to HDR, and welcome back to Yankton. All right. Moving on, number 8 on the last item under new business is consideration of Memorandum 22-71 regarding the approval of the 2022-2020 to 2025 strategic plan. Before I ask for your pleasure of what you want to do here, I'm going to ask City Manager Leone to walk us through the changes that were made.
Thank you, Honorable Mayor, members of the commission. Taking the feedback from both the public and your feedback from our previous work session, I tried to incorporate, working with our consultant, some of the things that you brought forward. One of them being to identify lead and sort of champion departments or individuals on projects, as well as partnering. Now, certainly that's not to say that's exhaustive, but we tried to give a little indication of the folks who will be primarily responsible for seeing these things to fruition. Also, there was discussion about somehow showing indication of the fact that some of the projects are already completed since we first met, and others are underway, so we included that. I got a little feedback about the long-term projects and things we want to work on from the community. One of those being to continue to focus on development of commercial, specifically retail, where and how it makes sense for our community, and not to lose sight of that and interest among community members. So included that in the strategic plan. It does make it a little bit more complex to read, but if you're careful at looking at the keys, you can see the codes there. We also included oversight on our behalf, a way to contact the city so that everyone can learn, engage, and thrive if they want more information, want to take a look at this plan. If approved by the commission this evening, we will put that on our website, share that on social media, and then we'll be getting copies to folks, including to you, so we can use it as our roadmap for our work ahead. So I'm happy to answer more questions, and if the commission would like, I'm happy to make more changes as well and bring it back another evening.
Amy, on the trends driving decisions, you put the lead and the partner, but those columns are not on longer term. Was that intentional?
Yes, although now I'm wishing I've done it. But, the longer term projects are still big ideas that are being formulated. So, for example, you see on the top there, as one of our dreams and vision is a library master plan, and what will be the future of the Yankton Community Library. Well, I don't know who that champion is yet. Is that going to be Friends of the Library? Is it going to be the Library Foundation? Is it going to be, somebody out there, a foundation or a private business? So some of these are a little too far off yet to identify. We know, of course, the library will be involved and all department heads will be involved, but what that looks like and what the partners might be, it's still a little murky yet. So the shorter term, we have a better handle on the details of the project, which is why those have identified leads and partners, but I can certainly make that change. We might need a bigger than 11 by 17 if we do that, but I'm certainly happy to make that change if the commission would so choose.
I think in my mind, Amy, that makes sense. I think I just wanted to ensure that it's not that nobody's focusing on it, that we just have it listed out there, and because there's no lead or no partner, it isn't that we're not focusing on it, we're honing in more as you've shared.
Yeah, those things are kind of in the dark room, and we're still developing the film. That's how I see it in my mind.
It's a good analogy. All right. Any other questions before? Otherwise, I would ask what's your pleasure?
I do.
Okay.
I had brought up last time about the enhancing cybersecurity being an immediate thing and potentially long-term. I would like to see that be an immediate action item.
I remember that Commissioner Villanueva, and we do have technology updates, not quite the same thing, so that's an oversight on my behalf. I will double check and have, I can have RDG make that change. I apologize for that oversight. So I can make that change and bring it back if the commission would like, or if that's the only edit, make that change and ask with that change, have the approval.
So if the commission does not see any other changes they make, if you are willing to make a motion to approve, please do so with the amended change that was requested.
I'm willing to move that.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the changes made to the strategic plan with the change of moving, enhancing cybersecurity technology, somehow getting that over to then the more immediate need. Everybody on the same page? All right, so there's a motion and a second for that. Any other commission discussion? Anybody in the audience? Roll call.
Mybom.
Aye.
Minor.
Aye.
Schramm.
Aye.
Weber.
Aye.
Villanueva.
Aye.
Benson.
Aye.
Brunig.
Aye.
Johnson.
Aye.
Mayor Moser.
Aye. Motion carries, and my thanks to City Manager Leone and all the department heads and folks that worked on this, as well as you all for the time that you've put into working this. I think we've got a really good working plan with lots on the left to focus our energy on, and as Amy said, lots of good things also in the dark room that we can develop as we move forward. So my thanks to all of you on that. We do not have any other business in front of the commission tonight, so with that, I would ask for a motion to adjourn the meeting of April 25th.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. And anybody abstaining? Meeting adjourned. Thank you, folks. Have a great night.